Here are the top stories for today, August 25, 2021. More jabs coming. The country is expected to get up to 25 million COVID-19 jabs in September. Booster shots remain out of the scene as the government maintains all who belong to the eligible population must get vaccinated first. And it's official, President Rodrigo Duterte confirms he will seek the vice presidency in next year's polls but may not push through on one condition. We tell you more later. The president lashes back at critics as he bears that two agencies under the past administration have also been flagged by the Commission on Audit over issues on the use of funds. And paving the way to progress, a new subsection of the Cavite-Laguna Expressway or calax is expected to serve at least 5,000 motorists daily. Good day, I'm William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. The government is banking on an ample supply of vaccines to keep its vaccination program against COVID-19 in full swing. Malacanang meanwhile advised against availing of booster shots this early while population protection has not yet been achieved. Marita Mawahe has the story.
The government has ensured a steady supply of coronavirus vaccines by September. Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. said the government has signed a purchase order for additional 10 million doses of Sinovac jabs. This is to make sure there will be stable deliveries of COVID-19 vaccines up to 25 million doses beginning next month.
Ito po, maganda po ito. Ito po ay mababa po ang presyo kaysa sa original price niya. So, ang nakikita po natin ay talagang medyo gumaganda po ang ano po natin ngayon sa Sinovac. Maganda po ang supply niya, steady.
He added that the manufacturer of the Pfizer vaccine might deliver about 5 million doses while Moderna might give around 3 to 4 million doses. Russian vaccine maker Gamaleya also promised to deliver the remaining 205,000 doses of Sputnik V Component 2, which will be given to those who have already received the Component 1 shots. Over 48.5 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been delivered to the country. The Philippines has already administered 30.6 million doses with 13 million fully vaccinated. He said the government targets to vaccinate some 77 million eligible individuals out of the country's total population of 110,198,654 Filipinos. Meanwhile, the national government is urging all eligible individuals to get jabbed with a COVID-19 vaccine first before even discussing plans for booster shots. Presidential spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque Jr. reminded the public that a budget for booster shots has already been allocated in the proposed 2022 national budget. He, however, stressed that the priority right now is to vaccinate first all eligible population in order to get population protection.
Mga nabakunahan na, huwag naman nating i-deprive yung hindi pa natuturukan ng COVID-19 vaccine. Maawa naman po tayo sa kanila. Okay? Ubusin muna po natin ang hanay ng ating kababayan. Bakunahan natin ang lahat bago tayo mag-isip ng booster. At kasama naman po yan sa budget na susunod na taon. 45 billion po linaan natin para sa booster ng lahat.
Dr. Ron Jean Solante, a member of the government's vaccine expert panel, said that there are still no recommendations on giving booster shots in the country. Dr. Solante added that even if there are data that point to decreased immunity with certain COVID-19 vaccines after 6 to 8 months, the vaccines are still effective and will continue to offer protection. For the PNA Newsroom, I am Marita Muahe.
Malacanang says the COVID-19 cases in the country is still within projects even as infections continue to soar. Presidential spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque allayed fears over the issue, saying the government remains on track with its target to curb COVID-19 spread. He adds measures implemented have so far been effective as cases are still below the 25,000 daily projection of the Department of Science and Technology's FASTER, a web-based disease surveillance platform that uses deterministic compartment modeling. Metro Manila and other areas were placed under a 2-week enhanced community quarantine to control further spread of infections, especially the Delta variant. For the past days, the number of new daily COVID-19 infections have been topping the 10,000 mark. A bubble for vaccinated persons? The Department of Justice says not so fast. Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara says this may give rise to legal challenges and that the country has yet to get a steady supply of vaccines. Guevara says the suggestion from Go Negosyo founder and a presidential advisor for entrepreneurship, Joey Concepcion, is good, but it can be viewed as violative of the Equal Protection Clause by those unvaccinated but are compliant with health protocols. While he understands that the move will spur economic recovery and more access for vaccinated persons, the Justice Chief says the right time to consider this is when the majority of the people have been fully vaccinated. Concepcion earlier proposed giving more access to vaccinated persons to restaurants, spas, and other establishments will help the economy recover amid the pandemic. Areas in the northern part of the country are also gaining headway in their respective COVID-19 vaccination drives. In the Ilocos region, over 1 million doses have so far been administered as of August 20, based on the latest data of the Health Department's regional office. Out of this figure, over 106,000 jabs were given as first dose to medical frontliners, while over 15,000 were given to OFWs and families of healthcare workers. Over 178,000 doses were given to the elderly, 127,000 doses to persons with comorbidities, and 89,000 to essential workers. The DOH eyes to inoculate at least 70% of the eligible population by year-end. Meanwhile, Baguio City has vaccinated over 72% of its eligible population. Data from the City Health Service Office showed over 89,000 residents belonging to the A1 to A5 priority groups have been fully vaccinated, while some 124,000 have received their first dose. The city targets to inoculate at least 95% of its total eligible population of over 296,000 to achieve population protection. The quarantine period for fully vaccinated healthcare workers exposed to COVID-19 patients may be shortened. This as the Health Department doubles down on efforts to ensure enough manpower in hospitals to care for COVID-19 cases. Speaking at a TV interview, Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeres says from the current 14 days, this can be shortened to half or for 7 days. She adds health workers in isolation must yield a negative swab test result on the 5th day of their quarantine. The DOH says it also works on increasing bed capacity and hiring more health workers to boost COVID-19 response. Still to come, it's a go for President Duterte's vice presidential bid, but it can still turn into a no. We find out later why. And a hefty fine may soon be imposed on nuisance candidates. Details ahead, keep it here on the PNA Newsroom. The COVID-19 pandemic has greatly changed our lives for the worse. Lives and jobs were lost and economies reached a meltdown. Thanks to the arrival of safe and effective vaccines, we are one step closer to normalcy. It's time to do our part, get vaccinated for our safety and for our recovery.
You are there in that community, go there and have yourself vaccinated by any of the vaccines available. They are all potent, they are all effective.
I would like to appeal to all our kababayans, please get vaccinated against COVID-19 and be the government partner in preventing further spread of the disease. I encourage you to get vaccinated as soon as possible time. These vaccines are safe and they are the key to reopening our society. The need for international solidarity and cooperation cannot be made clearer than this pandemic, because everyone is safe. No one is safe globally until everybody is safe.
Vaccines work. Aside from providing available COVID-19 vaccines, local government units are distributing cash aid and other forms of assistance to families affected by their respective quarantines. Marita Mawahe has the story.
The Quezon City government has already distributed over 80% of national government financial aid for families and individuals affected by the enhanced community quarantine. From August 11 to 24, the city distributed 2.09 billion pesos for over 668,000 families. For transparency, the city government published a daily cash assistance distribution tracker of the aid. Quezon City received 2.48 billion pesos from the national government intended for about 850,000 families. Members of low-income families received 1,000 pesos each, while each household is entitled to a maximum of 4,000 pesos. In Pampanga, the provincial government has launched a program that aims to provide emergency aid to patients showing symptoms of COVID-19. Through the Gamot sa Barangay para sa mga may sintomas ng COVID-19, the provincial government will give these patients some packet of medicines and vitamins for free while they await admission to health facilities. Governor Dennis Pineda said this new program aims to provide preliminary treatment for individuals with symptoms of COVID-19, while private and public hospitals in Pampanga can no longer afford to receive more patients. As of August 23, the total number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in the province reached over 32,000. Meanwhile, Ilocos Norte has secured additional 55 million pesos in financial assistance to individuals and families in crisis situations. The local social welfare and development offices in the 21 towns and 2 cities of the province are now in the process of interviewing qualified beneficiaries. Each indigent beneficiary, particularly those affected by COVID-19, will receive 3,000 pesos in cash assistance. Qualified beneficiaries are given educational, medical, transportation, burial, food, and non-food assistance in the form of outright cash to assist them, including for the basic needs of the families. For the PNA Newsroom, I am Marita Muaje.
The Department of Health in Western Visayas advises the public to assume there is a community transmission of the contagious Delta variant to strengthen the strategy to contain the spread of COVID-19. Dr. Bea Camille Natalaray, spokesperson of the DOH Center for Health Development, emphasized the need to strengthen the prevent, detect, isolate, treat, reintegrate strategy, and improve health care. On August 23, the DOH declared that 53 of the 72 variants of concern detected in the region were that of the Delta variant. 52 were locals, with 21 from Aklan, 16 from Iloilo Province, 11 from Iloilo City, and 1 each from Antique, Guimaras, Capiz, and Bacolod City. One case is a returning overseas Filipino with an indicative address in Bacolod City. President Rodrigo Duterte has confirmed that he will seek the vice presidency in next year's polls, but he will not push through with it if his daughter, Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte, will seek the presidency. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque says the president is willing to give way if this happens, saying he will do it out of delicadeza. Roque adds that Senator Bongo, the prospective presidential bet of the ruling party PDP Laban, will also be out of the scene once this happens. He says it is now up for the party to decide on how things will go for next year's polls once this happens. In his public address, Duterte says he wants to continue the crackdown against illegal drugs, crime, and insurgency. He says it is now up for the voters to decide on his fate as he seeks the country's second highest elective post.
Gusto talaga ninyo? O sige. Tatakbo ako ng Vice Presidente. Then I will continue the crusade. I'm worried about the drugs, insurgency, Well, number one is insurgency, then criminality, drugs. I may not have the power to give the direction or guidance, but I can always express my views in public for whatever it may be worth in the coming days na sa Pilipino na yan. Nandyan lang ako, magsabi lang ako.
President Rodrigo Duterte took a swipe at critics in the wake of the Commission on Audit's findings on the use of funds by various government agencies. This time, he reveals 2 agencies have been flagged by the State Audit Agency during the Aquino administration over unliquidated cash advances and fund transfers. Duterte says the COA flagged the Justice Department under then-Secretary and now Senator Laila de Lima over the unliquidated cash advances in 2013 amounting to over 617 million pesos. He adds the Department of the Interior and Local Government under then-Secretary Rojas was also not spared from the mess from unliquidated fund transfers, which he said amounted to over 7 billion pesos. Duterte slammed de Lima for criticizing him without considering that she has questionable cash advances during her term as DOJ chief. Meanwhile, Rojas' party, the Liberal Party, explained that the fund transfers were unliquidated as the projects funded are still under implementation. The government's Build infrastructure program continues to be in full swing in the remaining months of the Duterte administration. Around 5,000 motorists can expect smoother travel to the south daily as the Department of Public Works and Highways opened the 5.14-kilometer Cavite-Laguna Expressway or calax subsection 5 in Cavite yesterday. DPWH Secretary Mark Villar says this is the latest addition to the already open calax subsection 6, 7, and 8. Executive Secretary Salvador Mediadea, Senator Christopher Lawrence Bongo, Transportation Secretary Arthur Tugade, and Metro Pacific Tollways Corporation President and CEO Rodrigo E. Franco praised the opening of the calax subsection 5, which spans from the Silang East Interchange to the Santa Rosa Tagaytay Interchange. Once completed, the project worth 36.5 billion pesos will significantly cut travel time between Cavitex and the South Luzon Expressway and will give way to more efficient transport facilities in economic zones in Cavite and Laguna. The House of Representatives on Tuesday approved on final reading election-related bills proposing heavier fines against nuisance candidates and early voting of vulnerable sectors. The chamber unanimously approved House Bill 9557, imposing stiffer penalties on an aspirant trying to mock the election process. Such attempts include confusing voters by using names similar to those of other candidates, as well as demonstrating that the person has no bona fide intention to run for the office. The Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, shall impose the penalty of a minimum of 100,000 pesos on the person who maliciously filed their certificate of candidacy. House Bill 9562 was also overwhelmingly approved on final reading. It provides for early voting by qualified senior citizens and persons with disabilities during the national and local elections. Up next, the CIDG files charges against Communist founder Joma Sison and 3 other ranking leaders of the CPP-NPA. And the national ID will also have a mobile version soon. We're back after a quick break. Stay with the PNA Newsroom. You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. More Filipinos who evacuated from tension-filled Afghanistan have returned home. 22 Filipinos arrived in Manila from London Heathrow Airport Wednesday noon. They were among the hundreds of Filipino passengers airlifted by the British military from Kabul to London. Another batch consisting of 16 repatriates landed at the Clark International Airport on Tuesday night. In a post on Twitter, Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. praised the OFWs who strived to get home from Afghanistan, saying it was a pleasure and privilege to serve them. About 183 Filipinos have fled Afghanistan after the Taliban seized power last week. The Criminal Investigation and Detection Group has filed 4 criminal cases against Jose Maria Sison and 3 other leaders of the CPP, NPA, NDF before the Department of Justice or DOJ. CIDG Chief Major General Albert Ignatius Ferro, along with former communist members and other organizations, appeared before the DOJ to file complaints against Sison, Redsa, Balatan, Rey de la Peña alias Reynaldo Santos, and Joel Caliuliu. In a complaint, former rebel lady Desiree Miranda alias Ka Shane claimed she was recruited by Balatan to Anakbayan, a CPP-NPA-NDF front at the age of 14. She became a full-fledged member of the NPA at the age of 18, during which she was raped by De La Peña and later on sexually assaulted by Caliuliu. Sison is presently in the Netherlands, while Balatan, De La Peña, and Caliuliu are detained in separate prison facilities. Ferro said the justice that Miranda wants to get is now in the hands of the DOJ. Residents of Hacienda Raimunda in Barangay Capitan Ramon, Silay City, Negros Occidental received various forms of assistance from the Philippine Army and its partner groups on Monday. The village is the site of the encounter between government troops and New People's Army rebels on August 20, where 2 communist terrorists and a soldier were killed. In a peace dialogue, the residents aired their concerns to local and national agencies while being oriented on the deceptive schemes of the communist movement. Village Chief Ronnie Aguirre thanked the Army for foiling the extortion activities and ruthless acts of the NPA. Lieutenant Colonel J.J. Javines, commanding officer of the 79th Infantry Battalion, urged residents to work with them to end the local armed conflict in northern Negros. The Philippine Identification System, or PhilSys, is going digital as the Philippine Statistics Authority announced plans to launch a mobile version of the national ID card. The mobile ID will be activated within this year, while registered users wait for their physical card. Once the mobile ID is operational, PhilSys registrants can start making transactions using their PhilSys number, which securely verifies their identity offline and online. The PSA reported that over 1 million individuals are now holders of the national ID, a valid proof of identity that they can use for public and private transactions. The Philippine Postal Corporation, the official delivery partner of PSA, has already delivered over 1 million PhilID cards nationwide. The House of Representatives approved on second reading a measure exempting from all taxes the rewards for national athletes and coaches who compete or win sporting competitions. The chamber passed through voice voting House Bill number 9990, or the Heidelin Diaz Law. The base bill was filed by Speaker Lord Alan Velasco and House Ways and Means Committee Chair Joey Salceda in light of the historic gold medal win by weightlifter Heidelin Diaz in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. Salceda noted that state investment yielded the country's best performance in the Olympics. The budget for Philippine sports is at 945 million pesos for this year, which is almost 4 times the budget under past presidents. Diaz's gold medal was the first for the Philippines since it joined the Olympics in 1924. The country also won 2 silvers courtesy of boxers Nesty Petesio and Carlo Paalam, and the bronze of boxer Yumir Marshall. The lineup of elite para-athletes from around the world and the disqualification of their teammate due to COVID-19 is not stopping the Philippine delegation from continuing their dream to win a gold medal in the Tokyo Paralympics. Joyce Cudis has the story.
A record of 4,403 athletes are competing at the Tokyo Paralympic Games that kicked off at the Japan National Stadium on Tuesday night. International Paralympic Committee spokesman Craig Spence said this is the most number of athletes ever to compete at the Paralympic Games. The Paralympics opened cautiously as Tokyo continues to reel from the rising cases of COVID-19. The Philippine team pushed onward to the Paralympics minus one teammate para powerlifter Asiel Jinky Guion, who tested positive for COVID-19. Her coach Antonio Tony Taguibao, chef de mission Francis Diaz, and para-athletics coach Joel Derriada also tested positive. But more than the threat of COVID-19, the contingent is undaunted by the elite opposition they will be up against. Wheelchair racer Gerald Mangliwan and discus thrower Jeanette Aceveda said they are united by the belief that they are strong and they will not give up. Mangliwan will be the first to see action on Friday in the T52 men's 400-meter race, with the heats scheduled in the morning and the finals in the evening. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Joyce Cudis.
Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. More jabs coming. The country is expected to get up to 25 million COVID-19 jabs in September. Booster shots remain out of the scene as the government maintains all who belong to the eligible population must get vaccinated first. And it's official, President Rodrigo Duterte confirms he will seek the vice presidency in next year's polls but may not push through on one condition. We tell you more later. The president lashes back at critics as he bears that two agencies under the past administration have also been flagged by the Commission on Audit over issues on the use of funds. And paving the way to progress, a new subsection of the Cavite-Laguna Expressway or calax is expected to serve at least 5,000 motorists daily. As Filipinos, we all have a vital role to play in preventing the spread of COVID-19. So remember, wear your face masks and face shields, wash your hands often, practice safe physical distancing, go out only for essential reasons, and get vaccinated as soon as possible to protect ourselves, our families, and the community. Together, we can beat COVID-19. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. For more news content, check our webpage or log on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, we tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day. Stay safe, everyone.